Hi, I'm Danny Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of One on One. I'm joined today by Bonnie Addario, who happens to be the founder and CEO of the Bonnie J. Addario Lung Cancer Foundation. Bonnie, that's a handful. It has your name in it, and it also is associated to lung cancer. I understand you're a lung cancer survivor, so tell us about that experience.
I am. I'm a little over 5 years lung cancer survivor, which is a very, very small club, very small. Only 15% of all the people in the United States diagnosed with lung cancer make it to 5 years.
And I think you're going to tell us why you got to be in that 15%.
I am. I'm not going to go through the whole story because it's just belabored, but I was misdiagnosed several times. And when I was finally diagnosed, I saw a little article in the newspaper. It just wasn't more than 2 inches by 2 inches, and it was about a little hospital here on the peninsula that had a big association with a very big hospital in San Francisco. It was Sequoia Hospital, and it was University of San Francisco. And they had a doctor, a surgeon up there, that was traveling down to Sequoia Hospital and actually performing surgery on lung cancer patients. So after all the misdiagnoses and all of the faux pas, if you will, getting diagnosed, I decided these are the people I want to be with.
So I think part of that problem with the only 15% survival rate is, one, we're not diagnosing the disease, sounds like early enough.
Correct. And
also, two, when someone is sort of trying to find out about information of perhaps symptoms or what have you, the fact that there was an article that was a 2x2 versus perhaps an article on heart disease or breast cancer, which, as you know, we can take volumes and pages of information. That might be part of the issue that we're here to talk about and how we get the education out there.
Danny, that's more than part. Lung cancer, unfortunately, is still 2x2 on the back pages of the newspapers. But we're working on
change that.
We're going to change that. We're going to be on the front page soon.
And that's the work of your foundation.
Absolutely.
So tell us about some of the
Absolutely.
things that the foundation's
Absolutely.
doing, and then I know you then founded a second foundation.
Right. We started the first foundation really primarily because of awareness. There just wasn't enough out there. For instance, in 1987, lung cancer surpassed breast cancer as the biggest cancer killer of women. That's 30 years ago. And it's still, lung cancer still takes a little 2x2, piece of the newspaper on page 30.
And as I understand, in the funding, federal funding realm as well.
Not only federal, private funding in general. For every $14 that goes to breast cancer, $1 goes to lung.
Okay. So now you've created the foundation so that you can then raise money to put into this world and educate and do some screening, as I understand. People can go to your website and find out more about the programs that you're doing with regard to the Bonnie J. Addario Lung Cancer Foundation. But then something was born out of the Lung Cancer Foundation and the awareness and screening part of it. So tell us about Alchemy.
Well, after being diagnosed and healing and getting well, I really searched the internet. I looked at all kinds of places to get information about lung cancer and found there were very few. Also, very little research really taking place for lung cancer as well. So we started the first foundation, got things rolling, awareness. We have a ton of things going on there. But we decided to start one that was dedicated primarily to research.
Okay. So tell us about Alchemy and what exactly you are doing with the organization.
Okay. Alchemy was started after we held a summit about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago in San Francisco. And we invited about 100 of the thought leaders across the world to come because we really wanted to know if we did start this second foundation for research, what would it entail and what was really needed. Mike Milken came down. He was our keynote speaker. From that 2-day seminar, we discovered unanimously, everybody in the room, and we had people from MIT, some of the biggest institutions across the world, that what was needed was a biorepository for tissue. Tissue is the issue for research. You can't really research anything without tissue.
Sharing information, sharing of tissue.
Sharing information, sharing tissue. So we started Alchemy, Addario Lung Cancer Medical Institute. And what that is a collaborative effort right now between 7 institutions worldwide that are sending tissues to a biorepository we have at Response Genetics in Southern California. We also have a relationship with Biodesics up here for plasma and blood research, and then that information goes into testing for genetics. Our very first project is genetic testing. So lung cancer patients get the absolute best chemotherapy regimen first line, rather than shooting from the hip and guesswork. They'll get it.
Let's try this first. So, for example, when you had your surgery and they were removing part of your lung, that tissue then just went into a waste center, a medical waste center.
Well,
we weren't using your tissue to then share the information with others.
No, I was lucky enough to have my surgery at UCSF.
Okay.
So my tissue went into the repository at UCSF.
Okay.
So my tissue was used for research.
But did anybody else have access to that information?
No,
Any
just
other
UCSF,
institution?
just
Okay.
UCSF.
And that's what you're trying to change?
That and the community hospital. We're bringing community hospitals into this as well. We just signed Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach in Southern California, which is a huge, they do over 500 lung cancer surgeries a year. They will be part of this consortium as well. Currently in community hospitals, tissues from all cancer and life-threatening diseases are discarded. They're not used for research. They're not shipped to labs. They don't go anywhere. And this is just a gold mine of potential information and potential research. So we're the only ones that really have this collaborative official consortium between institutions and including community hospitals.
And it allows, I was just going to say, the smaller hospital to gain the access and information that some of our teaching hospitals, of course, have.
Well,
but it doesn't allow smaller communities to have that same information.
It gives the community hospital tenfold opportunities. One, to be part of research because their name will go forever on whatever research is found with these tissues. But it also sets them apart from the other community hospitals in their area because they are participating in research. And that helps a great deal when these community hospitals are going out for their own funding.
Right.
Because the patient says, well, what are you doing?
You know, Bonnie, I want to move off a little bit of the research part of what you're doing and sort of talk about the face of lung cancer. Because I think what happens is when we start talking about lung cancer, people will automatically say, yeah, it's that 60-year-old male smoker.
Right.
And, you know, he made a choice to smoke.
Right.
But you tell me about the face of lung cancer.
Well, over 25% of the newly diagnosed cases of lung cancer are with people that have never smoked, never been around secondhand smoke, and more importantly, and ironically, are very young. We have a little girl right now up in San Francisco. Her name is Jill Costello, and her Berkeley just had a big run in honor of our foundation and Jill last weekend.
20 years old.
22 years
22
old
years
now.
old.
900 kids in Berkeley running for Jill. This is happening all over the world. And what we're discovering as they have a different genetic profile than what was deemed the smoker lung cancer years ago. Even when I was diagnosed, it was still considered a smoker lung cancer. But in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, almost everybody smoked. And there were no genetics being studied at the time.
Right.
So there was only one cancer as far as the world was concerned, and that was the smoker's lung cancer. Now that the genetic testing is going on, we're discovering that there are multiple lung cancers, not just one, and not just a smoking cancer. There's two genes that are doing amazing things, keeping people alive right now. One is an EGFR mutant gene, and the other is this ALK gene, that are allowing people to take a targeted drug, just a pill. They're not getting hooked up to infusions and toxic chemicals and all of those things. First-line therapy that is really extending lives.
Well, I want to make sure that our audience knows, because we have to wrap up our segment, that they can go to either one of your websites, the Bonnie J. Dario Lung Cancer Foundation, or even Alchemy, find out more information, contact you directly, you take emails.
Absolutely.
And people can learn more and more about what is the truth in lung cancer. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining me today. We are just about out of time, and thanks all of you for joining me on One on One.